Okay.
Yeah, first, thank you for being my guest. I mean, it was a pleasure actually talking to you on the phone. You're very passionate about things, which I like. I love guests which are passionate and, you know, talk about their stories without actually thinking about it, which is great.
Well, yeah, it's I never used to be like this. It's only after I've done therapy I was able to start talking. You know, it's
But that's
been
nice.
very reserved and bottle everything up. But it seems like I've had a passion for writing and a passion for therapy and a passion for expressing and exposing. So
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts.
Yeah. You did tell me that. I mean, I'm quite intrigued actually. I just want to hear. I think our audience want to, or my audience want to hear everything about you. The way how you was talking on the phone to me, it was just wonderful actually. I do like people who just talk about it, you know, because my podcasts are very organic. I don't put up any kind of questionnaire as such. I just talk as it flows because that's the best way to present it, and that's the best way
Yeah,
how the audience can connect with you.
definitely. You know, as I said, you can ask me any questions. Yeah, any questions? You know, I'm actually just writing a book on the real psychology of a criminal. It's based on EBM, enhanced behavioural monitoring inside prison, and why I think it's flawed, and why the data is flawed, and why it's unworkable inside a prison environment. But that's my newest project. I just started writing.
I mean, I just wanted to hear first. I mean, what you was telling me, our audience wouldn't necessarily know who you are. So if you could just describe that in a, you know, quick manner, who you are actually. Your name is Terry Ellis, and yeah. I think you're wonderful actually. The way how you was talking, it's been extremely insightful, and I would really love you to just explain to us quickly who you are.
Well, my name is Terry Ellis. I'm famous for being an international drug dealer. Also, we were a new breed of criminal. We pulled off some of the biggest data heisting in England. In 2005, 6, and 7, pension chips were the new currency for most criminals. But over that period of time, there was quite a number of robberies, and the insurance and the police dictated that anyone who was carrying them had to have a very limited amount, up to $1 million or 300,000, which then we realised as criminals it really wasn't worth us actually stealing them, simply because once we sold them to our buyers, you know, the cut up was very minimal, but the sentences were still large. However, we then became aware of the importance of data on the computer chips, and we ended up doing one of the biggest IT data protection suites in England. It was Verizon, as in King's Cross, and we stole £5 million worth of pension chips and just over £100 million worth of data, and that is my claim to fame so far. I also do a lot of work with knife crime. I just wrote a book about emotional intelligence, about emotional development, and
which is my expertise, emotional intelligence. I love it. So I read into that what you're doing, which is why I'm so excited about that.
Well, you know, it was good because I spent 2 years in Grendon, a therapeutic prison in Aylesbury that houses 228 men of the most violent men in the country, from paedophiles, rapists, serial killers. You know, you name it. You know, you think of a crime and it was perpetrated, or someone that was there that perpetrated it. And I spent 2.5 years there, coming to terms with who I was and why I am the way I am. And you know, I learned some very valuable lessons there, not to justify my criminality by their crimes. And once I sort of, you know, got around to that way of thinking, you know, I then started to interact with them and articulate instead of actually castigating them. And I learned a lot, you know, just by being in their company. So I wrote HMP-Help, that's a guide to prison for first timers in their families. I wrote The Final Countdown to My Freedom. It's about being, you know, the last year of prison sentence. And then I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts. was about my 2.5 years I spent there with all the people I met and all the therapies that I undertook to actually make me a better and a rounded person. And also, you know, trying to explain, even though the title is very provocative, because it is living amongst the beast, the lessons that come across there loud and clear is about hope, change, and dealing with past traumas and issues, to create a better future for yourself. And I've had recognition from all around the world from people who have read it, who've said that, you know, after reading it, they expected me to castigate it, and also, you know, they realised it actually empowered them to actually talk about their experience of child abuse, and everything else. So, you know, I'm really pleased with how it's been received.
Book, but I've read the summary of that, and I found it very insightful. To be honest, your honesty has absolutely actually, I don't know, I love honesty with people, and unfortunately these days it's kind of difficult, because that comes back to emotional intelligence, which we're not talking about it today, but in general, I think because fear is there for people within themselves, they kind of actually don't realize that to fully develop, you need to actually surpass this fear. It doesn't make sense to have this fear in place, and you have actually surpassed this fear, and not just from your past life, but in general, you know, having the stigma or not feeling comfortable in talking about it. You just talk about it, and you talk with such honesty. You also confront all these things which you have experienced, all these different thought process of the criminal mind, with really precise description, and that's what I find really intriguing. It's lovely to read that. It's beautiful.
Okay. I think you know, the message that I wanted to give out, you know, in through the books, is one that, you know, crime comes at a cost. But also, you know, over the last few years, I also wanted to explain to people that because someone actually commits crime, you know, it doesn't mean they can't do good things. And, you know, people assume that because I do knife crime or work in food banks, and write self-help books and help people, and I did. I always did that as a criminal, you know, but they assume that I'm fully rehabilitated. And this is what, and so I really wanted to write a book. My next book is about the psychology of a real criminal, but it explains to people that about how I actually think as a criminal, and not what they think I should think. You know, people believe that I should have empathy for my victims. They believe that I should feel a certain way, have contrition. But when I explain to them, I don't. And I actually do the things I do. They can't put both in together. So for me, it's about bridging that gap and saying, look, if you really want honesty, and you really want rehabilitation to work inside prison, because there's no incentive inside prison to actually incentivize people who are in therapy, rapists, paedophiles, anything, to speak the truth. Because the minute they start speaking the truth about their crimes, that they still enjoy it, and they still fantasize about it and everything else, they're then put back into therapy. They're then asked to do more rehabilitation, and they're asked to actually extend their stay in prison. So what they've learned, or they've evolved, and this happens across the board for most criminals, that when they do enhanced behavioural therapy, is that they all lie. You know, and this is why I don't believe therapy and criminal psychology inside prison it works in any form, simply because why would a man tell the truth knowing full well at the end of it he's going to actually have his sentence extended? He is going to lie through the skin of his teeth. And as we know, most rapists, paedophiles, deviants, and criminals are very deceptive, deceitful by nature, very manipulative. So once they realise that if they tell the truth, they're going to stay in prison, why would they volunteer to actually participate in anything inside prison apart from lie their way through it? And this is the problem.
That's not just criminals, it's generally the human mind, you know, it's the human nature. If you confront somebody for being a racist, for instance, he would never admit he's a racist. He will always make up excuses. Oh, I've got black friends, I've got this, I've got that. if you confront someone in committing a murder, anything, they will not admit that, because that's the initial response. It's our threat response. We don't admit these things automatically. So why would it be different with a criminal in prison? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've been lied to for years about rehabilitation in prison. You know, rehabilitation doesn't work. I've been inside for 15 years. I've met lots of criminals. I've met lifers that have to go through rehabilitation courses and have to speak in a certain way to say that they've actually learned so much. And they tell me off camera it doesn't work. They haven't learned anything. It's just really just giving it lip service. And you know what? The prison authorities know this. The service providers know this. They know it doesn't work. But you know, just to appease Joe Public, they just churn it out year after year. It used to be courses, now it's psychology. And you know, I can remember the serious personality disorder units, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, were championed and were beyond reproach as far as the work they were doing with mentally ill patients or deranged patients or whatever it was. You know, it was, as I said, it was beyond reproach. And all of a sudden, there was a whistleblower who was very high up in the government and who worked as an eminent psychologist that said, actually, by being in that environment surrounded by other personality disorders patients and talking openly about the way they did, you know, what they did to their victims, these guys are actually getting worse. And what they did, they actually disbanded it over an 8 or 9 year period, and it's not even mentioned. And I think the same will happen again with psychology inside prison, you know, simply because the data that they're producing is flawed, simply because the people that they're speaking to are lying to them. And there's a reason why they don't have any data in Grendon, which I thought was a fantastic prison as far as therapy, cognitive therapy was concerned. However, it wasn't the medicine that cured recidivism or stopped people from killing and everything. But you know, I learned a hell of a lot there. But there's no data on there about the reoffending rates of ex patients or ex offenders, and there's a reason for that, because most of the guys that I actually kept in touch with, who were lifers, murderers, and everything else, they're all back inside now. So you know, it's hit and miss, you know, and I realised that there was the same reoffending rates inside Grendon as there was in most mainstream prison. And you know, I don't know if you watch television. I just saw a documentary on Broadmoor, and they say exactly the same. They spend £300,000 a year on keeping inmates into conditions that are akin to Butlins. But the work they're actually doing is not even progressive anymore, simply because they know the psychopathy of a psychopath, sociopath, and everything else. But that's not an indicator of across the board anyone in society if they're going to become a murderer, serial killer, or commit a crime. So basically, all they're doing is taking, you know, criminals that have committed the most heinous crimes in our country, and they're hypothesizing or you know, theoretical hypothesizing, and then writing on the fact, on hindsight, of why they are who they are and why they did what they did. You know, but the reality is, you know, anyone is capable. You know, for years and years, we were told that most, you know, the most criminals now that are in prison, it's either drug related, it's about lack of education, social and economic deprivation, and this breeds criminality. However, you know, as I said, I've been inside for 15 years, and most of the people I met, you know, and I'm going to go right across the board: drug smugglers, serial killers, rapists, paedophiles. They had brilliant educations. They had fantastic upbringings. They had wealth, you know, but still, you know, they offended. And these were 60%. You know, we're talking about the 40% of the recidivism of people that go through the system. The drug is, you know, people that are uneducated. But the vast majority of criminals that go inside now are very well educated. You know, so that really dispels the fallacy that, you know, you have to be uneducated and have a really bad upbringing. And
it's actually the intelligence which you can shift. I mean, you can use your intelligence in a positive way, or you can use it in a negative way. It doesn't you know, intelligence is intelligence as such, and a criminal, especially such high profile criminal, has to have a level of certain intellect to be able to do that. Otherwise they wouldn't function as such in that position. It's similar to a CEO position or to a managerial position. You have to have a certain intellect to be able to act in that kind of position.
Yeah. you know, for years and years, I said, you know, I keep harping back to the fact that I've been in prison for 15 years. You know, and I've, you know, as I said, you know, the rehabilitation at prison doesn't work. Psychology definitely doesn't work inside prison. And what I noticed is that because we have sort of privatized the prison system, it's all done on it's all about money now. It's all about bums on seats and doing audits and everything else. And this works against actually rehabilitation, simply because the people going into prison that need help in reading, writing, and sort of education, these guys are actually being left on the landings because they're disruptive, and then, you know, they don't engage properly, got dyslexia and everything else, and they've got drug problems, but they're just being left to vegetate. And the 60% I was talking about that are well educated, they go into the education department, and because they've had a good education, they start doing open university courses. They start doing all, and they fill in all these forms, and you know what, the service providers love it because they're getting, you know, they're getting all this data, you know, and they can present that as saying they're helping prisoners. And the 40% of the revolving door recidivism will always be there because we're not targeting the people that will need it.
No, you know? That's right. That's right. I mean, the other thing I would also say, as you rightfully said, this follow-up is not there, and that doesn't seem to be part of the rehabilitation system as such. You know, to reintegrate someone in general, wherever he feels empathy or he doesn't, that's irrelevant. But to reintegrate someone and to realize that these things are not right to do as such, although they have their thoughts about them, but they're not right to do within the society they're living in. There's nothing which follows them up. There's nothing to guide them actually through, and there's nothing to really analyze these things. I mean, I've noticed that within my work, I'm a multilingual, and I think that actually helped me as such to understand human behavior from a very different perspective, where somebody else may just look at a person and a condition, as you said, which has been written in some books as a diagnosis, and doesn't actually look at that same behaviors or similar conditions could have various different behaviors as such, just because of the background of the person, of the different understanding of the person. And I've learned that through my languages, that I haven't just learned languages, I've learned the cultures, I've learned the various different behavioral attitudes. And that's what's lacking in most professionals as such. You know, I have lots of experiences from my personal experiences as well, which just add to that, traumatic experiences and so on, which led to me in analyzing the person in a very different way. So you look at different elements from their childhood, from their attitude, from their behavior, from their present, from all these different functions which could have gone wrong, and you have to connect them together to understand where this behavior actually comes from.
You know, and this is the difference between someone who knows what they're talking about and someone who's just churning through the process in prison. As far as you know, it's not one glove fits all. You know, every person that comes in has to, you know, we have to sit them down, we have to psychoanalyze them, and we have to figure out their needs. Unfortunately, in the moment when people go into prison, it's like it's one glove fits all. We all put there and you all do that, and nothing ever gets done. You know, if we could promote the fact that that people come in and have got individual needs, and we can take that one person and we can actually sit down and speak to him and talk about his background, talk about his needs for education and employment, and actually work with him on an individual basis. He's going to be more receptive than someone who's actually going to be sitting in the class feeling alienated because he's not as aware of the situation as his peers.
Absolutely. And it's the defense system, and it's the defense system as such, because everyone has a different way of defending themselves. If somebody feels threatened, for instance, if a dyslexic person feels threatened, depending on how that energy in itself is, how they feel about things, that's how they would react. One would react in a very aggressive manner, the other one may react in a inclusive manner and has low self-esteem. So everyone reacts in a very different way, you know.
Well, what I found when I was in education is I could really spot someone who had dyslexia. I could spot someone who couldn't read or write simply by their body language and their mannerisms, simply because, you know, the first thing they do is they're going to be disruptive. you know, because they don't want to be there, because they don't want to embarrass themselves. And if we look at embarrassment, you know, embarrassment is a contributing factor to most killings. You know, ego is a contributing factor. So if we got a man who is capable, and he's going into an environment which is really alien to him, like classroom, and we don't give him, we don't help him, all he's going to do is he's going to be destructive. He's going to disrupt the whole class, and then he's going to go back onto the wing, and he's not going to achieve anything. You know, I found that when I approach these guys, the first thing I used to say is, like, right, I'm dyslexic, and I know exactly what you're feeling. I know the anxiety you're feeling. I know you don't want to be here. You want to get out. I know about the embarrassment, the shame, and about the ego. You know what? You know, this is who I am, and most of the people that I've met, you know, knew me and knew of me. And I said, but this. I've always carried this shame, and you know what he did? He actually alienated me from actually achieving my goal. Yeah. So, and I said, once you own your dyslexia, or the fact that you can't read or write, and if anyone takes a mickey out of you, then they're really not your friends, you know. And once the teachers know that you've got dyslexia and they don't work with you, then you know it's not your fault, it's theirs. You know, so you're actually going to empower yourself by owning the fact that you've got dyslexia. And it's
the perception and self-awareness as such. Once you have a gradual understanding of the perception of the situation and self-awareness, build up a very healthy self-awareness, that's when you move forward. That's when you can work with these things, because you can never eliminate dyslexia, but you can manage that. You can work alongside that.
You know, I do talks in schools. You know what? And it's the first thing I say when I go in school. But you know, the world has opened up. You know, technology is actually, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I would never even have considered writing a book. I've wrote 10 books now in the last 2 years.
It's very impressive, I must say. I did look at that, and I thought, wow.
The good thing is now I'm able to go on a computer. I'm able to go on the phone. I've got predictive text. I can write, and anything that's in here, I can now put that down on paper, and I can email it, and I can get it sorted. You know, we never had that years ago. So you carried that shame and everything else, and anxiety. But you know what? Because of technology, we're able to do so much for these guys. And but when I go back into prison and schools, we still seem to be stuck in the Middle Ages as far as actually these guys actually owning their stuff, because this is still seen as a stigma. You know, we should be talking to these kids as if or treating them as normal. We shouldn't be, they're not any indifferent from anyone else. It's people learn differently. You know, as I said, I think my dyslexia allowed me to actually retain so much. I'm able to write a whole book without even stopping. You know, it takes me 6-7 weeks to write a book, but thank God I've got dyslexia now. I appreciate the fact I've got it. You know, I think for me it was going to Grendon and doing the therapy that allowed me the opportunity to actually own it, because for years and years and years and years I never owned anything. So it was only by going into a therapy group and actually talking to other men for the first time in my life that I was able to say, you know what, my name is Terry Ellis. I've got dyslexia. I've also suffered from mental illness. I've also suffered from self-medication. I've used cocaine. I've self-medicated with heroin. I've smoked everything. And you know what? It's such a relief. You know, and to actually tell them that I was abused as a kid. I was in care. I was physically and mentally abused. I was abandoned as a child. But for years and years and years, I bottled it all up, and I was so angry and frustrated. And the minute I actually started talking, I could feel all that anger dissipate. It never went. You know, what happened never goes. No. But the thing is that once I started speaking about it, all that anger and frustration started dissipating. So instead of pushing people away with that frustration and anger all the time, I was able to actually engage better with people and actually get their opinions and advice and actually take it on board instead of just keep pushing. So for me, as I said, I don't believe therapy is the answer inside the prisoner's criminology. But actually, therapy as something that is actually works with the prisoner, for the prisoner, and helps him understand himself, I think it's invaluable. As long as it doesn't keep him in prison.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you beautifully described is that any kind of disorder, any kind of even traumatic event, you can never push them away. Whatever memory you actually collect, unless you have a memory loss as such, but other than that, you cannot push memory away. And the more you actually suppress these things, you're more, you become frustrated, and everyone acts in a different way with this kind of frustration because they cannot understand how to manage these things. And once you can manage these things, which you have rightfully explained, they're there. You can feel them, you can touch them, you can let them in and out of your life, because you will never actually eliminate them, but you can manage them, you can live with them. You don't let them affect or take over your life no more. And that's the beautiful thing. I mean, I've gone through lots of traumatic events from childhood, and I can relate to you in that way, that I suffered with child abuse as well, very serious child abuse, and it just followed on with other abusive relationships in my adult life. So I can relate to you in that way, that traumatic events do have an effect on you in general. But once you understand these things and you then embrace that, instead of pushing it away, you embrace it. This is part of my life, but I am the person who I am, and you have become a wonderful person. You've changed your life around. You then start evolving. You then start processing these things, and what you've then done, you turn this energy into helping others, especially prisoners who have these needs and which are unfulfilled. And because you understand their needs, you can then create ways for them to rehabilitate, in general, to become better people in the society.
I think I know from my experience is that it was a start of the healing process for me, because most people were young kids, they normalize it, so whatever abuse you've gone through and everything else, and you're still living in that environment with the same people and everything else, you actually normalize it, and then you justify your life by someone who's had a worse life.
That's
and say, well, you know what, my life wasn't as bad as his, so you then say, well, you know what, it wasn't that bad. But I think once you start talking about it, and you then see yourself as a victim, because we never ever see ourselves as a victim. Once we establish the fact that we were a victim of circumstances and which we never had no control over, and because we were kids, we never really understood it. We then actually put coping strategies in place as kids, and then coping strategies were anger, were self-medication, were violence, were being destructive. I think, and I know lots of men in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s that have never actually bridged that gap from adolescence to adulthood. They're still stuck they're still stuck in that place where they're still 30 and 50-year-old kids. So it was actually for me, actually doing therapy was actually a way for me to actually bridge that gap back to being an adult. And it's only once I explored all my past and I became that adult, I was able then to articulate so much better. It was great. It was like a special power, to actually not be in that fight or flight mode all the time when anyone confronted me, but to actually think about the consequences of my actions and thought process and everyone. What I thought was actually one of my biggest strengths was my violence and my forcefulness. Actually, I realised was one of my biggest weaknesses, because people would engage me and give me their opinions, simply because I was afraid of how I would respond. So to actually get that anger out and put it into its compartment and hopefully never rear its head, I'm able now to have so many brilliant conversations with people about my life and about their lives, and actually engage and actually just link in with the fact, oh God, that's what I went through and that's what I did. And once you understand it, you're able then to pass your knowledge on to the younger kids and the younger people, and actually help them breathe better. I think as a society, most societies have a ceremony of being from an adult to an adolescent to an adult, but we don't seem to do it over here. But it was a blessing. Therapy for me was probably one of the best things I ever did, as far as peeling that onion and actually coming, peeling and finding out who I was. It's like night and day. If you knew how I used to be and how I am now, and it was just simply, you couldn't knock it into me. You couldn't tell me. It's only by experiencing group therapy and cognitive therapy that I was able to actually engage, on so many levels, whether it was fight or flight, that confrontational, conflict resolution. It was only after conflict resolution and exploding and going through all them moments and realizing that if I keep doing the same thing time and time again, I'm going to get the same results. However, if I then read the situation and read my body I had the adrenaline rush and everything else, and how my responses and actually controlled that, you know, I was able then to actually take more control of this. I was actually, instead of just swearing off, you know, pontificating or whatever about, you know, swearing at everyone and everything else, I was able to control it and then articulate a response back to any given situation. And you know what? It was just like the whole world opened up as far as now that I can actually communicate with everyone and tell them exactly how I feel about them instead of swearing. You know, and it feels so much better. You know, I think we go through life, you know, when people used to say to me that I was a bad person or this and that, or don't do that, you know, I used to take it on board. I could never ever tell anybody no. If someone asked me something, you know, even to borrow anything, I could never say no because I felt their embarrassment. And it was only after, you know, one of the biggest lessons I actually learned, Grendon, was actually able to say no, which in itself is crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, I spent so much of my life helping other people that if they got in trouble and they said, "So I got a bit of trouble here. Can you help me?" Deep down, I wanted to say no. But once I was confronted by this situation, I was like, okay, no problem, let's go. And I ended up in trouble all the time. It was only by doing Grendon and the therapy I did is I was able to meet insane people again, and when they're in their state of high anxiety and they've been drinking and everything else, they got themselves in trouble and they phone me. I'm now able to say no. If you've got a problem, phone the police. If you've got a problem, deal with it yourself. I'm not going to put myself in any danger anymore. But you know what? Just that one thing in my life to say no was probably one of the biggest achievements.
But it's the self-aware, absolutely. It's the self-awareness which you've grown now, and the understanding that it's okay not to feel guilty about things. I mean, I'm a natural empath, and somehow the whole traumatic events which I've experienced have kind of then created or made me wanting to become the healer, the provider, the healer, the overcarer, the one who wants to help you as such. But it's an urge. It's not just something which I just do. It's something which is inside me. And I can understand that in that way, because most of the society then starts abusing these things in a very bad way, and you feel empty. And that's when you feel empty, then you try to analyze these things and don't understand why it's happening to you, because you're providing, you're helping, you was helping in your own way, but because it wasn't reciprocated as such, you became frustrated. That's okay. You became frustrated as such.
Yeah.
So you know, it works in a very similar way. And once you understand this guilt, that you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Sorry,
you don't have to feel. That's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about it. It's okay. You want attention.
I'm so sorry.
So you don't have to feel guilty about it, you know. You allow yourself, you be kind to yourself. That's what it is. You don't have to be cruel to yourself to feel you need to serve everyone, or you need to be there for everyone. No, you just analyze these things different. You step back, you understand yourself, and you say it's okay. It's all fine. And that's what I say to my clients as well, if they're frightened. I mean, luckily, somehow I do have an impact when I come into a room, and that's a very privilege to have. I do understand that people do trust me. They want to open up to me. But I do feel that you have to be able, me as a therapist now, to give them this feeling, just to give them this trust. It's okay. Whatever you're going through, it's okay. Even if you want to cry, you want to be angry about it, you want to be frustrated, it's okay. Just go through it. Allow yourself to be.
I think I think the same process is what I went through, you know, because I was a victim of that. I always wanted to sort of save everyone else. But as a criminal, we actually justify our actions by actually doing good deeds after we, you know, I found myself, you know, buying things for people, and I justified my criminality by actually helping others, which is crazy. And you know, and the same respect as being a victim, you know, is that you take on everyone's embarrassment and everyone's shame and everyone's everything else. You then put yourself forward. You know, I used to be like the scapegoat for everyone. I'd always stand up and be the savior. and it got me in so much trouble. But you know, it's actually so more empowering now to actually sit back and actually advise instead of actually taking over everyone's life and trying to control it and actually lead their lives for them. You know, because I think it's really important that people make their own mistakes. You know, as long as you're there to guide them. You know, I've got 11 grandkids now, and I've got five.
Oh wow, big family, wonderful.
That's it. I've got five grown-up children. And I spend quite a lot of my time being like an agony aunt, like a marriage counsellor. And you know what? And they've thanked me over the last few years, which has been great. But I've never actually interfered. You know, and I say I won't interfere, but I'll give you some advice. But before, I'd have been straight in there. I'd have been sorting out their boyfriends. Like, don't you ever talk to my daughter like that, or don't do that. And I know that I would have just pushed them away, because then that they would never have actually come to me and told me anything. So you know, for me, it's been so rewarding actually finding who I am. You know, I tick, and I could only get that insight to actually seeing other people like me. So when I was in therapy, there were so many people like me who were angry, violent, you know, and it was only by seeing their behaviour and the way they interacted with others, I used to look at them. That's how I am.
It's like a reflective mirror from your past.
And this is why I believe that psychoanalysis, as far as group therapy is concerned, is definitely a game changer. You know, it's not the medicine that cures recidivism or crime, but could you imagine? You know, the one thing I did see when I was in Grendon is that even though I was surrounded by the most violent criminals in society, that once they actually started engaging in therapy on that level, that there was actually no violence there. There was no self-harm, no suicide. So, you know, there is definitely something to be taken from the fact that therapy inside prison works on so many levels. However, you know, as far as actually using psychology as a gauge to actually someone actually changing, I don't think is measurable.
No. Everything is a gradual improvement. It can never be the only solution. There's so many different elements involved, and as you said, you know, you have to find out what their needs are. It could be education, it could be sports, it could be anything to let the frustration out, or to fulfill something which they're actually missing, to fill that void as such. And that takes time to analyze these things.
I think, you know, I also, you know, because there was we went for a set program. You know, one of them was, I told you about, it was actually using a diary for the first time. You know, actually writing something down. At the time when they first gave me a thought diary, I actually thought, oh my God, this is such a joke. This is so trivial. You know, is this how they're going to kill me? You know, and I sort of went away thinking, oh my God, this is so crap. But you know what? Every time I felt angry towards someone, I wrote down. I wrote how I felt about it. You know, and they said that they wouldn't read this. It was purely for me. So, you know, so I wrote exactly, and I got all the vitriol out of my system. And just that writing down was actually a way of healing as well, was stopping me from doing the things I did. Yeah. And what I did, I wrote it for 3 weeks, and then I never read it. And all of a sudden, I was sitting there one evening, and there's nothing on television, and I read it back. And you know, and I read how my thought process was, because I used to ruminate with people. You know, I used to actually think of someone and ruminate what I wanted to do to them, and actually how I would respond to them if they said certain things. So I spent so much time ruminating on people that actually, when I actually did meet them and actually have a conversation, I actually engaged them in a completely different level. So I realised that my thought process was really skewed. So it's only by reading back and forth of how my thought process worked, I was able to actually start correcting that. And every time a thought process came into my head that was negative, I'm now able to say, oh, I'm not even going to think that. This is about positivity. It's about changing that thought process. And over a period of months, I was able to change that negativity into positivity. And it was so easy that I realised that, you know, why didn't I do this myself over all these years? It was only. But
that's what it's missing when you're. What you're describing is observer's view. It's the observer's view. Actually, you cannot actually process your information or understand your thought process unless you've been confronted by it. wherever you're confronted by it by other prisoners behaving in a similar manner, or you're confronted by it through your words, which you're reading back as such, you know. Another form of doing that is also mirroring yourself, standing in front of the mirror and asking the client to talk towards yourself, whatever is in your head, talk it, because then you can see your facial expression, you can see the way how you react, you can see your verbal, non-verbal postures and behaviors as such. And only by this observer's view, you're actually then starting to understand what's going on really in your brain.
Oh yeah, I used to. The good thing about Grendon is that every aspect of my mannerisms and the way I acted and talked was actually held up to me. You know, I was constantly pulled into therapy groups and said that, you know, that the way I actually come across to people was very aggressive. And, you know, and after a period of time, I was actually winged. And a winging is a process where everybody and 40 other men tell you exactly how you come across. And it's quite humbling. It's quite you know, at the time I felt quite aggrieved by it. As the process went on, and the smaller members of the community actually said, you know, the way you come across there is quite aggressive, and when you talk to me, you're quite intimidating. And the conclusion was, as I had to make myself smaller. So I always had to change the way I actually came across, because I was training every day, doing pull-ups and everything else, and I was quite athletic. So what I did, I bought some pink socks, different coloured socks. And shorts, different coloured pairs of shorts. So I'd have a pink, blue day, orange day, and I'd wear these things, because all of a sudden that then changed me, because, you know, because they looked at the socks and they smiled and laughed, and what we did then is we started saying good morning. So instead of me just walking past and looking at them going, you know, I then started to just really not worry about my ego or everything else. I just put the different coloured socks on every day, a different colour t-shirt, different colour shorts, and I'd just go morning. And you know what? You know, over that period of time, is all them people that were afraid of me actually started talking to me. So it was also, I had to take it upon myself.
It's wonderful what you. I mean, did you get that idea yourself, or did somebody actually advise you in that?
No, I got it myself. I said, well, okay, what I do, I won't start dressing the way I'm going to start wearing different coloured socks every day, and I'm going to, and when you see me, you can talk to me. And I told them, you know, come and talk to me. You know, the face is the front. It's a mask that I've had to put up for years and years and years to push people away. And that's what you do as a criminal. You push people away, and you imagine this is your shield. You know, and the thing is when you have got no social skills and you can't articulate, what you do is you create a persona that pushes people away. You know, how many times have you walked past someone every single day and they've got a face like thunder? Then they're scared to look at you. But you think it's because of you. You think, you know, but you should. No, I started thinking after a while, no, it ain't me, because I've never done nothing. This is them. You know, they're frightened to actually engage with me, because they've obviously got no social skills. They haven't got nothing to talk about, or they're just afraid to expose themselves and actually let me into their life. So what I started doing, and you know, and everyone, I can remember walking down Landon, and there was one guy, he had a broken nose, and he was always like every day, never said a word to me for months. And I can remember walking down Landon, and as I got near him, I said, morning, how are you? And he went, oh, all right, mate. And he's holding me in a train within seconds. So we done the first morning, hello, how are you? Next morning, introduced my Terry, blah, blah, I'm Camertown, London, la, la, la. He told me where he was. And after a while, there was 14 of us on this landing. And this is after I left Grendon. And before I got there, no one used to say anything to each other. They was all scared. They was all like, they was all keeping themselves to themselves. They were scared to expose themselves. And within, I think it was a 2-week period, we all started conversing. Morning, Tony, morning, Peter, everything. The whole dynamics of that landing changed simply because of a hello and a good morning and a facial expression.
And not just this. I mean, you've added that very creatively, and that's why it comes about with your dress code, for instance. You know, you just made it really nice and accessible as such, and that's the beautiful thing about that. That when you shift your focus, and you've done it really, you know, wonderfully as such, without even being a psychologist in that way, you shift the focus from the problem to something positive. just to something funny, just to something easy. And that is what it's about. Suddenly the focus from, or the impression what people had, or even you yourself had of about you, just shifted, and it became soft, and it became nice, and it became positive. That's what it's about. You can't change your attitude as such, but you can distract it through other ways, and then find different ways to engage with that in a slightly different manner. And it has worked wonderfully for you. It's lovely
I think it helped me more than them, because
it always does. It always helps yourself more than somebody else.
because now I was able to actually start talking, and I realized I had quite a lot to say. And it was actually really nice to actually engage, and actually normalize. When I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts, I can remember having a conversation with a rapist, and I never used to speak to any of them. I used to hate them, because the first thing they used to say to me, they used to shut me down. No one could ever go at me more than I've already had to go at myself, blah, blah. I said, look, don't shut me down. And, just to actually talk to them repulsed me. However, it was only by talking to them and engaging them with, because I had to, because of the socks and everything else, because I was winged and I had to do it. Because over a period of time, I actually realized I had to normalize it. And actually saw them in a completely different light, that 99% of who they were was actually like me. They were brothers, sisters, fathers, and they laughed, they joked, they had boyfriends, they had girlfriends. It was just that one little bit of their makeup that was deviant and killed and everything else. And I realized that, how really, how I've been looking at it all wrong. We look at pedophiles and rapists and all these, and we expect a monster. We expect to see monsters come out, but you're not. They're just but
not just this. Most people, as human beings, they make a judgment. It doesn't even have to be a criminal. It could be anybody. Somebody could be looking at you, for instance, and would make a judgment without actually analyzing who you really are. And there's very few people who look beyond these things. It can be learned, to take that attitude away and try to actually look at the person rather than the attitude or the impression or the perception which you're getting as such. I mean, me being a natural empath, I can just tell you, I don't judge any person, and that's just who I am. I look at the person and I tell you if I like you or if I don't. No matter, you could be black, blue, green, blue, you could be a criminal, you could be disabled, you could be anybody. I don't really care. As long as I speak to you, I will then make my own assumption. Do I really like that person or do I not? That's what it's about. But most people don't come to that stage, or do not have the education for that, maybe not the understanding of this, maybe feel part of a tribe, of the society where they don't want to come out or are accustomed to something. And that's why it needs to be educated that everyone is an individual. And that's the only way to go forward. To wherever, a lot of rapists as such, and I'm not saying all of them, do come from a very abusive background. They have suffered some form of trauma themselves.
Yeah.
And instead of, just not everyone can process these things. And that's not just, the actions are not justified, but I'm talking about their background as such. Because their background comes from these things, instead of processing that maybe, or they didn't receive help to process that neither, they then familiarize themselves to the perpetrator and start mimicking the perpetrator as such, feeling this empowerment coming on the other side, and then wanting to feel or hurt the other person because they've been hurt.
I think, ultimately, we're responsible for our own actions. I also know lots of people that have been molested, sexually abused, and everything else, but don't go on to offend. So you know what? I've listened to the nature versus nurture stuff for years. I've been through the mill, but I've never ever hurt anyone. I've been abused. I've never gone on to hurt anyone. It's a conscious decision I make. I make a conscious decision to be a criminal. I take full responsibility. I don't blame my upbringing. I don't blame economic deprivation and my surroundings. So, I think ultimately we have to take responsibility, because I did find in therapy that we seem to lead towards lean towards these people and actually giving them an excuse to be the way by actually asking them, to actually
don't get me wrong. I'm not.
victims.
Yes, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not giving any excuse. I'm just trying to explain the background of where it derived from. That's not justification at all. For the action, we all have to take our own responsibility. But everyone processes these things differently, and that's where the intervention has to come in. That these things, although they have processed that in that way with their actions, it's wrong. It's not the right way to do so.
People are all different. The one thing I did like is that most people's masks slip after about 3 months. So the one good thing about going into Grendon and being in that close environment and being around people is that they could only hold that pretense of being who they was for 3 months, and then the real them came out. So, and
it's the honeymoon period. The honeymoon period goes away.
But but after that 3 month period, so now what it taught me is that everyone I meet, instead of taking them at face value, or they're being really nice to me, I always say to myself, you know what, let's have the same conversation with myself in 3 months' time and see if how they're going to do it before I let them into my life, let them into my house, and let them associate with me. There's very few people actually get past that 3 month period without exposing themselves. And I think what I learned from that is never to trust anybody, because some of the the most horrific murderers I came across are dismembered women, kids, and everything else. Some of the most charming and articulate people I've ever met. You would think, I wouldn't melt in their mats. I knew people that killed their whole families, killed their mum and dads, killed all their kids. And when I spoke to them, they came across as if like they were school teachers, barristers. And that was the biggest shock. And what I took from that, and what I tell people is as much as it's okay to actually let people into your life, it's really important that you actually get to know them, because you can know someone for 20 years and you really want to know who they are. Simply they're only going to give you what they want. It was only by being in Grendon and surrounded by these people on a daily basis I was actually able to see them in therapy and on the landings and in all their glory, that I was actually able to make a more better judgment of them. And most
you made the observation. You made observation, and that's what is important. You have to make a full observation of the person rather than just taking them with face value. And that's where, unfortunately, the mental health system is lacking in general anyway. Rather than to make a full observation, they go on certain therapy methods or certain behavioral attitudes. It takes time. It takes really time and a thorough research as such to understand who the person is and where he comes from, or she.
In the same respect is actually even coming out of prison. I've spoken to police officers and everything else over the last few years, and with my capacity as a knife crime ambassador. And really, I have off the record conversations with and. I remember one police officer saying, if he had his way, he'd spend 80% of their budget on the area, not on policing. But he couldn't possibly say that, because he said if you improve the facilities, improve the area, and invest in the community, the crime would go down. And he said, I don't even express my opinions or my thoughts simply because if I do, then I'd be sacked. This is the problem with society. We have people in authority. If we look at the Cummings over the last few days doing his hatchet job on Boris, he was in a position where he could have exposed this months ago and actually stopped numerous people from going into care homes being killed by the COVID, simply if he would have stood up and gone, look, I need to clear my conscience at this particular moment in my life simply because you're doing your job wrong. But he couldn't do that simply because he has to pay his mortgage, he has to look after his family, his kids, and it's actually beneficial for him not to talk the truth. And this is the trouble with society nowadays, is that we are more preoccupied in paying our bills and actually living trying to live, that we're actually being curtailed and actually telling the truth. There's
what you're mentioning there is the natural progress, and which is wrong, because I find myself outside of that box. It's a bystander effect, because as human beings who like to be part of the tribe, you know, to put it that way, wherever it's our society, wherever it's our culture, wherever in the political elements, it's being part of the party, not to be excluded. We don't want to exclude ourselves and feel odd about that, which is why we just act as a bystander effect. There's very few people who actually then, and it comes down to fear again, to surpass that and come out of this and look at this in a different perspective outside of the box, to analyze this actually critically, to say, no, this is not right, no matter how much I am actually dependent on that, no matter what it's actually giving me, it's not correct. It takes certain people to come out of these things, or a certain attitude or a certain character as such, you know. I've always say it again.
I wish it was that easy. Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I think I'm most probably only talking about that because I've kind of been thrown out of the normal societal box. You know, having a very abusive childhood and then going into abusive relationships as such, being abandoned by family on various ways. And there were a lot of traumatic events which have actually made me the person who I am. I don't like to fit in one society. I don't like to fit in one category because I am just me. I'm just me, my own person. And what I've done is I've embraced every good thing about various cultural elements, not to dismiss them, but embrace the good things and made them my own. And I've dismissed all the negative ones, excluded them from my life.
You know,
but there's very few people who would look at that this way, you know.
Right. And this is the good thing about finding who you are. You know, just being able to exist without your ego and all the other stuff, and actually just be yourself is brilliant. You know, I found myself. You know, I was going to say we have to sort of like, you know, there's got to be some plus points and all this. So for me, you know, I used to self-medicate. I used to be on a piss every night, and I used to crave affection and love from different sorts of women every single day. You know, and I equated love or sex to love and being cared for. And it was only over the course of my therapy sessions and on the 2 years that I did, I'm able now to actually just be so happy. You know, I don't drink no more. I don't smoke no more, and I'm in the most amazing relationship with my girlfriend at the moment, because I know who I am, and we have the amazing conversations, and it's just so rewarding now that I don't have to be intoxicated to actually let my guard down, or actually just be who I am. I don't have to smoke weed, crack, cocaine, or whatever to actually get that euphoria to feel the way I do now, which is brilliant. You know, all them thoughts.
It is self-discovery. Again, it's self-discovery, self-awareness.
And it's brilliant.
Embracing yourself.
Yeah.
Embracing yourself, you know.
Yeah. But my life is so more fulfilling because now I'm not killing myself with all the stuff that's happening around me. I'm actually living life instead of just hiding away from it. I used to thought that I was okay, but I was just existing. You know, now, you know, as I say, you just heard my dog barking. I got a Cavapoo and I got a Pomeranian, which were two dogs you would never ever.
I love Pomeranian. You know the Asian households. I don't know if you're aware of that. They always scare kids off from dogs generally. Yeah. So I once stroked a dog, and came home, and my mum told me, go and wash your hands 7 times. Dog is dirty. So since then, it was always in my head, and I used to kind of build a fear or dislike towards dogs. Not that I don't like them, but it's like more a fear of such. And then suddenly I came across 2 years ago a Pomeranian, and he doesn't look like a dog. He's just a cute little teddy bear or something. And I started stroking him and loving him, and everybody around me, because they knew me, they were really surprised about that. I love Pomeranian now. I don't know if I would love any other dog like that, but I love Pomeranian.
You know, as I said, you know, people would associate me with a Rottweiler, Alsatian, or Pitbull. But when I'm actually walking along the road with a Pomeranian and my Cavapoo, it's crazy, and my pink socks. You know, people look at me, you know, really funny. But you know what? It doesn't really matter no more. I just wanted to go on one more thing. Because we were talking about lessons that I learned. One of the biggest lessons I learned was how to deal with boredom. For me, I never ever even contemplated actually thinking about boredom and what it actually contributed to my life. When I was bored, I'd go out to the pub. I'd go out and do silly things. But it had a massive consequence on my life. It was only until I really understood boredom and was able then to actually find ways of not becoming bored that really helped me. It was actually one of the biggest contributing factors for me actually writing again. Because I realized that when
you found a purpose. That's the point. You found a purpose in life.
To actually sit down and spend 5 minutes writing or 10 minutes writing or an hour writing was to me it'd be like pulling teeth. For me, I would never even consider that years ago. I hated writing anything to do with anything to do with academia. But you know what? To sit down now, I sit down from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 or 7 o'clock at night writing. And you know what? It's one of the best things because now I dealt with my boredom. When I was bored, I used to smoke. When I was bored, I used to drink. When I was bored, I used to take drugs. When I was bored, I used to do silly things and go meeting people. But now I can deal with my boredom so easily by just picking up a pen.
I mean, you've shifted the focus again, the same way like you was wearing the pink shorts and pink socks. The same way you found now another way, another coping strategy to shift your focus from the negative to the positive. And that is a very valuable ability to have, actually, what you're doing. It's not many people who come to that point who do have the understanding or create the understanding of, I have to shift my focus, I have to find a very positive, a purposeful activity as such, which actually creates this joy as well, not just that you're writing it, you're actually enjoying it, which is nice to see,
It's also very fun. I don't think I cried so much when I wrote Verizon, because I wrote about my early years, I cried in therapy, I got upset in therapy, and it's sort of, it was a catalyst that actually started me on the road to actually finding empathy, because, I don't think I had any empathy. I never ever thought about my victims or anything else. But thank God you can learn empathy. It is a learned behavior, because after I started talking and I started reading and I started writing, I cry now at an advert on the telly with a little puppy. Any films I watch, I cry. My girlfriend looks at me and said, "I can't believe you are you are the person you say you are sometimes." Because we watch it, even when we're watching a film and something is sad comes, and I'll have tears in my eyes, and then she'd look at me and I just go, "Oh my God." But the good thing is getting in touch with that emotion was one of the best things. Because I never ever, I could see someone get run over or anything. I wouldn't got an eyelid before, but now, if I see even a bird in the street that's been hit by a car, I have to stop my car. I have to pick it up and I have to take it to the vet. I have to take it and look after it. It could be a fox. It could be anything. I can't leave anything behind me.
What you have done with this way, you remember you was earlier saying about you was craving for this affection and then having a lot of intimacy with various women. So and mistaking this intimacy with sex as such. So what you now done is this affection, which where you had this void in yourself, you have now created another shift to express your affection in all these various wonderful ways. And that's a beautiful thing to do. To be able to understand this affection, this void, and fulfill this void with how you're doing it.
I think that stems from the first day that I went to Grendon, where I was offered the diaries, the thought diary. And I think I learned from that process how cathartic it really was to actually get it all out. Since leaving therapy, and actually, because when I wrote Living Amongst the Beasts, people said, we wish we could have heard much about your previous life. And I never ever wanted to write about it. But I can remember sitting down one morning and thinking, what, I'm actually going to write it. So I wrote Verizon, and I started at the age of 11. And all them memories started coming back. And I actually found myself writing and crying. And by the time I finished writing the book, I thought I was all cried out again. You know what? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it was a really good thing, because the more tears that come out, the more frustration, the more anxiety that goes, and that comes out of me, makes me a much better person. So I'm an advocate in writing, getting all your feelings out, and really
And
expressing
not
yourself
just
now.
not just a better person as such, it also heals you as such, you know. It relieves you, it relieves your pain, this burden, these difficulties, these struggles. Suddenly you feel enlightened, you feel bright, you feel just at ease, at peace.
Yeah, and I feel absolutely amazing. And I've actually, you know, as I said, I put the same amount of energy now into work. You know, we got a business called Scoff Mills, where, you know, where we fed all the homeless and all the old people through the coronavirus. I think I made 10,000 care packages. You know, and that was off our own backs, donations and all that. I worked with Vicky Patterson and Yay Hire, and we put a shout out to all the big companies, and they sent lorry loads. You know, we spent weeks, we've spent months actually unloading pallets and actually making packages up and actually giving them, delivering all around England. You know, it's one of the best. But we created a business called Scoff Meals, where we deliver, you know, food for people, you know, in gyms and who want to improve their lives nutritionally. So, you know, out of one good deed has come a massive business, which has been great. I now employ 14 people, and it's wonderful. You know, from someone who 5 years ago came out of prison in a tent to actually writing 10 books and actually employing 14 people now, and I employ my 2 daughters and a boyfriend. You know, life is just so brilliant, and that's only. I mean, you have
to show as therapy as well, but also the ability which was in you. Now you can recognize or realize actually the intellect you had inside you, which was used in a wrong way. Now it's used in all these positive ways. It just shows how capable you actually naturally are.
Yeah, yeah, and it surprises me every week. you know how much I have changed. You know, I think I'm going to show you this book. You know, this is my new book, Verizon. My girlfriend actually. My girlfriend actually turned around to me and said, "If I would have read that before I met you, I would never have been with you." You know, so that's how bad it is. And this is a self-help book I've done. It's called HMP. It's the first time I said it families. This is the final countdown. This was the last year of a prison sentence, and this was living amongst the beasts.
Yeah.
So I've also got another 5 books coming out over the next few months. But my biggest joy is I've just wrote a kids book, and what I've done, I'm donating to the school because of all the work they've done through the COVID period. But I'm also doing a module that, because all the pictures have been illustrated by young kids, and this is brilliant. So what we did, we put their names in all the characters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a series of modules in schools to get them to draw the pictures and actually donate the proceeds to the school. So, you know what is you know, I've learned that it's actually more rewarding to actually give than actually to keep taking, you know, as I've got older, and my life is actually really fulfilled, and it's been brilliant.
And it's getting better. I mean, you see, you're doing all these lovely, wonderful things, and it's not stopping. It's just increasing. It's just it's wonderful to see that. I mean, all these books would be lovely if I get an autograph in that and I get a copy of these.
if you're ever in Camden Town, Hampstead, you know, they're all on Amazon. All my books on Amazon, on Terry Ellis books, paperback and Kindle, unlimited. You can actually read them for free and unlimited. But,
yeah, I know. I prefer paper copies, as you can see. I love to hold the books.
I spend all my time meeting people, because what I did, because we self-publish on Amazon, is when I advertise them, I always tell people, if you buy it and it's a Sunday morning or afternoon, I will come to Hampstead Heath. It's just up the road from me. I live across the road from Hampstead, and if you come to the station, I'll come and sign it and get a few pictures of you, and the offer stands for you if you want as well. Yeah.
I have your number anyway, so we'll arrange something. I'll meet you up for a coffee or bring all the books with me.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would actually love to be honest. I could carry on talking to you forever. I would actually love to hear more about your work, what you're doing, about your film production now as well, the book which you brought out about Verizon. I think it's something which may be really, really interesting to talk about, the way how you dealt with these things and the way how you now express these things to bring them out to the public. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm sure we, you know, because the books I write actually, they've all got a message, and it's about the crime doesn't pay. There's a massive price to be paid. But I've also just wrote a book about emotional development. You know, it's basically all the stuff that I learned when I was in therapy to actually empower people to actually look at the ego, embarrassment, and shame. You know, because these are the biggest contributing factors to knife crime, violence, and murder. So you know, it's about, you know, for me, I've been saying for a very long time is that, one, we can't arrest ourselves out of this predicament or this epidemic of knife crime.
No.
And we definitely can't talk about it and in a way that is going to convince these kids to actually change their mindset, because it's not going to happen. But what we need to do, we need to do early intervention, and that starts in primary schools, secondary schools, and then on to further education. But it's also a long process. It's going to take 10, 15 years. I don't think we can, you know, just throw money at like they've been doing and blame it on, you know, they keep blaming on youth clubs and facilities. You know, I don't think they realise, you know, because I'm a criminal and I've been in that world, I don't think they realise that most of these kids that actually go to youth club are not criminals. You know, and most of the criminals will never be seen dead in a youth club. You know,
and what people are actually forgetting, that a lot of things have changed. I mean, how many youth clubs had existed in the past with all these different activities? They don't exist no more. The more you take actually these things away from the society, the more it comes back to boredom, for instance, again, to disruption, to kids not knowing what they should do. They don't have any focus on the future. All these kind of things are gone, and they should be there. They should be there for young people to engage. I can't hear you now. I don't know what happened. Yeah, you're back.
You're back, yeah? I think, you know, ultimately we have to stand by decisions, whether we got youth clubs or no youth clubs. You know, I knew right from wrong from a very early age. You know, and I know that it's wrong to stab people. I know that it's wrong to hold people and women and children. You know, so what has changed? What really has changed now? You know, I can't.
I think what it is what I'm trying to say is giving them the facility and education which comes with that to shift their focus again. Because although you have a thorough understanding about what is right and wrong, or you have a very strong mindset, not necessarily everyone has that. I mean, I see that with my clients. They may have gone through half of the traumatic events which I have gone through, and they turn out very differently, you know. So you have to kind of then try to understand that not every person may have the strong mindset or ability as such to understand these things.
Well, this is why I wrote the book, because I really think that we should be going into schools. We should actually, you know, we teach maths, we teach history, we teach everything. We should also teach emotional development. We should also put these kids in the same thing, the same conflict resolution classes that I did. So look, it's not easy. If it was easy, it'd probably be in schools. But to have a group of kids having to go at each other, and for them to feel that adrenaline rush and actually, you know, want to confront each other and beat each other, but not to do it over a period of time, they then become so aware of that emotion and how it works that they actually start operating a completely different way. And this is the trouble with kids on the street, is that they know maths and they know English and they know everything else, but the minute they come into a confrontational situation that they can't handle, they start swearing, they start pushing, and they start bringing out knives. And once you put a knife out, you've got to go forward, or the other person takes it off and stabs you. So I think it's really important that we go back into schools, we start teaching emotional development and early intervention, because what they've had for the last 12 years isn't working.
No, it's the dialogue which is missing, and you know, the communication. Sorry, you broke up again. I couldn't hear you.
I'm still here.
No, you're back.
I think it might be my phone. It overheats after an hour. I think it knows it's a sunny day. It's a bank holiday. You know.
Yes, I won't take much of your time. I've got actually a podcast coming up in a couple of hours again.
You know, if you want to do a part 2, you want to talk about it, because you know the one thing we haven't covered is what I actually saw when I was actually in Grendon. You know, and I see people doing therapy and speaking the right way and the right language and you know, showing that they had changed, but in reality it wasn't. So it was very deceptive. You know, and that is one of the reasons I wrote the book, simply because I saw people engaging in therapy in a way that was contrary to the way they acted on the landings and the way they spoke. You know, so for me, I wrote that it was to dispel the myth that actually therapy as a whole is the medicine. It's not. You know, it works in so many ways. It's a contradiction in terms. However, it doesn't cure everybody. But I'm sure you know, cognitive therapies, you know, saved my life. So you know, so I can only champion it. You know, and the
no,
work
you've done it beautifully. Absolutely. I mean, yes, I would be actually interested in having you again, doing a part 2, possibly a part 3 as well. we could go on like this.
Part 3, part 4.
So
you know,
interesting.
you line up the questions. You know, for me, as I said, I'm writing this new book, and the thing is, I'm going to answer every single question. There's going to be no ambiguity, no manipulation, no deceit in my answers, because they're going to be so honest. And I think people are going to be shocked at the way I actually think. But even though I think like that, and that's how I feel, it doesn't necessarily make me a bad person. You know, I still can have empathy, and I can still help people and still show emotion. However, I'm not that, you know, I'm not white and white. I'm not that angel. Even though I'm a born again Christian now, you know, I'm still capable of doing exactly. I'm still as capable now as when I was 15, 21, or 30.
What people are forgetting that experiences, whether good or bad, criminal or not criminal as such, it is part of human beings. That's who we are. And people are forgetting that because of their actions, whether right or wrong, that's not what I'm justifying, but we are still human beings, and we have very similar needs, we have very similar emotions, we have very similar desires. You know, all these things don't just go away. You're still a human being, and that's what people forget about that when they get this perception, because the judgment comes up, you know, the barrier comes up suddenly, and you judge that person not on the person itself, you judge them on their actions as such, without understanding the person.
Yeah, it's so easy, as you said, it's so easy to judge people. You know, we judge people selling weed on street corners and say they should be in prison. We judge people that take heroin and crack cocaine, they say should be in prison, they're scum and they're addictions.
I mean, we judge homeless people, not just them. We judge homeless people instead of understanding. Most homeless people don't come from the road. Some of them came from a very good, well-earned society, and they may have just had bad luck or any kind of event which they couldn't cope with, and it brought them into this situation.
Divorce, loss of a job. I think in the future we're going to find more people living on the street in this country than ever before, simply because, you know, I don't know if you know, at the moment, you know, just to rent a 1-bedroom place, or it's like £500 a week. How many people earn £500 a week? And that's without electric, that's without gas, that's about transport, and that's about feeding yourself. You know, more people, as they get older, they separate simply because you know, the wife's had enough of them or whatever. You know, so you're going to have more single men on the street, more older men that have had someone looking after them all their life, and all of a sudden they're stuck on the street. And this is what's going to happen. You know, I feel for them, and I feel for the young people coming up, because, you know, we've got generations of kids, 2-3 generations of kids living with their mum. You know, I've still got friends who are 40 years old living with their mum simply because they can't get any social housing, and they can't get on the mortgage ladder, and they can't even rent because it's too expensive. So you know, there's going to be a price to pay for this, whether it's mental health or an explosion of anger or frustration.
I mean, I can see in general, a post-pandemic now, there's a new pandemic crisis which I can see. It's the Verizon, it's the mental health crisis. Whether it's you know, people becoming homeless, whether ex-offenders coming out of prison, whether people generally rising in their mental health crisis, you know, don't know what to do with themselves. Young people, as we said, in school and education, all these things will be coming.
I think, you know, more so with the ex-offenders, simply because you know, I can speak from experience. I still speak to ex-prisoners. I still speak to prisoners. You know, prisons have got a 92% success rate of housing ex-offenders. Now, that's a fallacy. You know, I'm going to tell you now, every person that leaves prison without somewhere to live leaves homeless. You know, and what happens is when you leave prison, you have to get a travel warrant. Now, to get that travel warrant, you have to give a postcode. Once you give that postcode, that's classed as a successful rehousing. So most of these guys, they have to get that postcode simply to get a travel warrant. But most of the guys leaving prison have to come out of prison. They have to go and live on someone's city. If they go to their local council, the mantra now from the local council is that you intentionally made yourself homeless by going into prison. And for that, you have to wait 5 years and prove that you live in the borough for 5 years and then come back to us. So there's going to be a massive explosion of ex-offenders going, you're going to have that revolving door. And I don't think that's going to change until actually there's some joined up thinking and there's awesome transparency with the council, the prisons and the housing departments and the social housing being built. I think unless we actually sort that out, I think, there is going to be an epidemic of homeless people. There's no doubt about it.
No, absolutely. I can see that coming as well. Fully agree with that. And it's quite sad to see, actually. There needs to be a change. I mean, I'm part of mental health change. I don't know if you've looked at that on LinkedIn. It also includes young mental health change, which is sort of some things which you're mentioning about prevention in education with children, to make them understand about emotional needs and without actually having to go through all this period of maybe offending or maybe going into a crisis as such. But it's all little things which we're trying to do as individuals. I'm part of that organization, and we're trying to establish that in a lot of other ways, which I can explain to you in another time. But
I'm quite
if you're interested,
that
would be lovely, actually.
Because in the final countdown to my freedom, one of my best friends committed suicide in prison. Ash, he had done 16 years in prison. He had a year to go, and I had dinner with him that evening before I left to go to another prison. And in the morning when I woke up, the bell went off, and someone said someone had committed suicide upstairs, and he was the last person that I expected.
I'm sorry.
Right, but it happens.
It's okay. Don't worry. You don't have to feel embarrassed with me at all.
Oh, no. You know what? I met so many young guys in prison that commit suicide. They just couldn't cope and that. And I met lots of friends that commit suicide, and it's still great for me. It
does. I mean, it's a loss because you feel for that soul as such. So it does hurt, and I can empathize with you as such. And it's okay. Don't feel any way in that way. It's fully okay to feel that way.
I think since 2000, I think just over 3,000 ex-prisoners commit suicide coming out of prison. That's crazy, and nothing's been said. There's not been one. There's not one inquiry or nothing. They're just being left to actually leave prison, and they're deemed as scum. They're not worthy of actually an independent inquiry, simply because they're ex-offenders. They're human beings who committed crime. We have MPs going to prison now. We have Jeffrey Archer. We have all these people going to prison that actually doing wrong, but because they have money, they can get back into their lives.
I mean, look at the Southwark affair with all the MPs, which came up a few years ago, and now it just went down, brushed under the carpet, and no one speaks about that.
They arrested the guy that actually accused them all. They put him in prison, and that was it at the end of. But this is what it does. It's the same as Grenville. We have a 20-year inquiry. Nothing will come of it. We have people admitting that they done wrong. At the end of the day, they get a slap on the wrist, they get reprimanded. It won't bring all these people back. We have Hillsborough. We had the blame game for 20 years, and then all of a sudden, people are dead. There has to be a change across the board. That if something like this ever happens again, the inquiry needs to be set up straight away, and it needs to be dealt with in a period of 2 years, not in 20 years.
I absolutely agree.
It's a disgrace. It's the same
in
prison.
Is there something you're working on at some point?
You know what? As I said, I'm working with Scott Mills at the moment, and I work with Change Your Life, Put Down Your Knife. We teach. We go into boxing clubs and we teach kids how to box. We get them off the street. We also, help them towards further education. And I actually do a lot of work online. I get lots of ex-prisoners getting in contact with me, and they say, well, I can't get employed because no one employing me. And I say, well, no. There's loads of organisations out there. They're all online that employ ex-offenders. I think there's up to date. There's space for about 165,000 ex-offenders to actually be employed through companies that are actually employing.
But that's the education, because they don't know. They don't know about these facilities. The
trouble with prisoners is that they will always, they're always victims. They're always going to say, no one loves me, no one likes me, no one can help me. But you know what? It won't help themselves. And this is this is why I go into do what I do, and why I write the book, is to say, hold on a minute. No one's going to wave a magic wand and get you a house or get you somewhere. You've got to do it yourself. You need to start writing letters from the minute you get nicked. You need to start changing your life from the minute you get nicked. If you can get help with your drug addiction, your dependency, or anything else, take it. If you can educate yourself, because you know what? In 5-10 years' time, when you come out of prison, you're still stuck at how you was when you get in. Don't expect the world to change. It's up to you to change you. It's about empowering yourself. And that's what I encourage.
It's a confrontation which you're doing also, encountering actually the consequences as such, and making them take down responsibility.
That's what you got to own your shit, as I say. It's really important that you say, like, you know what, this is who I am, and how do I change that? There's no particular ingredient that makes a person change their life and be rehabilitated. It's a combination of things. There's no such thing as rehabilitation. I can honestly say that. However, there is one thing that will change someone's life, and that's a change of circumstances. So if you educate yourself out of poverty, and you educate yourself into a job, and you get a skill that will give you a living so you can rent a place, you're less likely to take drugs, you're less likely to go out thieving, because you want that security in that place. You find love, you buy a dog, you live like a normal person. If you want to live in the gutter and you want to complain about it, that's up to you. You know what I mean? If you want to carry on thieving, you want to carry on doing the stuff you do, don't complain at the end of the day you're going back to prison. And that's the mantra.
And that's a very, very good very good message to have now. It's excellent. It's been a delight talking to you, actually. I hope you enjoyed my company as well, as such.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually. I was actually dreading it. Like, I could go and rob a bank. I could tie 100 security guards up. It's not as nervy as actually doing these podcasts, trust me. But I thoroughly enjoy them once I've done them. But there's a lot of anxiety that goes into just sitting there for me. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad you come and do it again.
That's wonderful. Did I make you at least feel at ease? I hope I didn't make you feel.
Oh, you're beautiful. Yeah, love it. It's fantastic. Once you read all the books, you'll have a million questions to ask me.
There's a lot. You're giving me a lot of homework to do then.
Well, hopefully. Hopefully.
No, I will certainly do. No, I will certainly do. It does intrigue me as such. As I said, I've read the summary of your book, Living Amongst the Bees, and I found it really, really interesting as such. And I do think the way how you express yourself is so important. It's so crucial. Most people don't talk so directly. I mean, I'm a very direct talker. I express my emotions. I express my experiences. I don't make any kind of facade about them or trying to mask them in any way, because there's no point. And the main point is, if I was to be hypocritic, as you do as well, I cannot actually try to help or try to advise someone else. It doesn't work. I would be acting wrongly. So I have to be very open. I have to be accepting to these things. I have to embrace who I am, because that's the person who has made me now. All these experiences have formed the person who I am now, and I'm happy for that, because I can use all these experiences in such a positive way in changing other people's life, and that's exactly what you're doing as well, which is wonderful to see.
And the funny thing about it is so easy. Little incremental changes in your life will change your life forever. And that's how easy it is. I never realized how simple it really was until I'd done it.
Yeah. And it's healing you. It's healing you at the same time. While you're doing that, people don't realize it's healing you as well,
And you know what? And so many people benefit from me being healed. Which is great. There is light at the end of the tunnel for everyone. Anyone who wants to really have a deep look at themselves, it's not pleasant, and sometimes it's quite emotional. But you know what? Once you've got it out and you've dealt with, it's so rewarding. Really,
And I
rewarding.
can see the glow in your face, the happiness, the peace, all these kind of positive attitudes, positive emotions. They just ooze out of you. You know, you don't have to do anything about it. It just comes out automatically, and that's why people get attracted to that, because they want to be part of these things. Because most people do live in their miseries, in what they're familiar to, in that darkness.
And most people like to wallow in self-pity. So, you know, but you know what is, I was going to stop them, but yeah, I can remember going through a stage of self-pity, and just listening to music and feeling wallowing. And I used to play the same records all the time, you know, and just wallow back in them because I quite enjoyed it. You know, it was a mental breakdown I had, and I think I had 3 of them in all the time I was away in 8 years. And they lasted for about 3 weeks at a time, where I would just shut myself away. As soon as I got into my cell, and I would shut the curtains, I'd black everything out, and I'd put the music on, the CDs, and I would just go back to a time when I was in love or whatever, and lost that person or whatever. I'd wallow, and I feel so sorry for myself. It actually made me feel good, you know. And it was only after, you know, once I started to understand it, that I was able to break myself out quicker every single time. It took 3 weeks the first time, 2.5 weeks the second time, 2 weeks the third time, and now when I feel it coming on, I switch the radio off.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
I mean, it could be different as well. Depends how you take them. I listen to music a lot. I listen to my kind of genre. I like soulful music, beautiful soulful music.
I love music.
And
love music.
Yeah. And the good thing about music is, because it enhances. It just opens up your hemispheres. It enhances so many brain cells, so much thought process. All these different lobes are actually stimulated by that, which you cannot do while you're just talking or doing other activities. Music actually enhances all these things. And I use that sometimes as a coping strategy to just calm myself. I mean, I'm a natural calm person, as you would have gathered anyway. But I do also get frustrated. You know, there's times I'm still a human being, although I sometimes come across like someone who cannot be affected by anything. But yes, I do. I'm still a calm human being, and I still get affected by things. So I use music as a calming method for me, which just brings me to a lovely world as such for that, you know.
I think, you know, music is an elixir of life, you know, and that's what affects so many people in so many different ways, you know. And I love music, you know. I was in self-pity when I was going through a depressive state. However, you know, I listen to music every single day. There's not a day that goes past. You know, I've got Alexa over there. I've got all my favorite records, and as soon as I wake up in the morning, I put the news on at 6 o'clock in the morning. But after I've listened to the news, I come down here.
Yeah, just in the background.
Yeah, and I write. You know, you know, all I do is write, and you know, because I want people to share in what is out there for them, and that's why I've written so many books over the last couple of years. It's simply because I want them, and we give them, and you know, we don't make those. We sell them for a price that people can afford, because the message is more important than the actual money, and I don't really need it anyway.
That's right. Have you actually had a chance to look at any of my clips or posts?
You know what? As I said, we just moved to new premises over the last couple of weeks, and I haven't stopped. I haven't looked at anything. I've not even opened an email apart from your one today, simply because I've just been so busy. You know, and I know next week we're employing 3 more people, and we have to get it right. And you know, and after this next week or so, I should be able to actually sit down and think, oh my God, we've done it. We're going to get a manager in there, and I hope I can take a little rest, and I can actually start doing what I actually enjoy. You know, because at the moment at the moment I have to get up at silly hours in the morning. You know, I go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock, and I get up at 1, 2 o'clock, and I write till 5, and then I go to work at 6. You know, it's just not enough hours in a day, which is brilliant. I love it. I can't knock it. I love my life.
I mean, my message is mainly about positive mental health, and understanding what all the topics which you've just actually touched upon, to bring them in a way how that people can just relate to that, because I don't just want to approach any kind of researchers or consultants. I want to approach everyone, and everyone should be able to take a piece out of that and try to embrace it in their own life. I mean, today it was as simple as just smile, and smiling, how to release these happy hormones, and how it makes you feel good, how it fights, you know, how it reduces stress, how it increases your immune system.
Just a good morning and a smile. That's all it takes to change the world.
That's what it is.
I'm going to take my dogs over the heath now. And,
on that note, yes. No, absolutely. I mean, it's been a delight talking to you, honestly.
No, thank you. Wonderful. Just call me again anytime you want, and we'll set up something else. Yeah, and we'll talk about something else. I'm doing a film soon.
No, we will talk about that as well. Absolutely. I mean, your experiences, which you're explaining in prison as well, the thought process which goes behind. I think that's one matter which we should tackle too, which is very important to know, especially to take away the stigma, you know, these misconceptions which people have.
You know, if you write down 100 questions, in fact, I'm looking for 100 questions for my new book. 100 questions that you want answered, yeah, or 50 questions or 30 questions that you want answered, with no ambiguity, just the truth. I'll answer them, and I'll put them in my book.
That's wonderful. I mean, I don't work with questions. I just work, as you've seen, with the flow. But I can write some questions down if you want. That's fine. I know. But yeah, I mean, you're so busy in general. Are you available via text message? Do you look at your text messages?
Just do what you did. You know, you sent a message earlier, didn't you? And I got it. Just message me and I'll phone you. I know that I'm this month. I've got James English. I've got Sean Atwood. I've got Black TV. I got a wedding, a birthday on the Sundays. You know, because what I do, because I work all week, and Sundays is my day. But after not this month, next one, I'll be free on the Sundays. Yeah.
Wonderful. No, that's lovely. I mean, the same for you as well. I work with lots of things. You know, as I said, mental health change as well. And then I do a lot of charities too. I feed the homeless in my little way, and trying to just change people's attitude. Just make the world